great guys. He's gonna kind of talk to us, and then we're gonna ask some questions. If you ask a question, you get an extra raffle ticket for one of the baskets. We have 22 baskets to raffle off.
Nice. Well, morning guys. My name's Mark Craven, and I've written 7 books actually. This newest book is the only one that actually got some attention. So, I mean, that's kind of how life goes, you know. But I love that you guys have a book club. I think that's awesome. And I knew Sam when she was at CCAC, so I work there as assistant professor. I teach math, and I'm a senior advisor, so I hang out with college students all day, every day. But yeah, so I've, a little background, I've been writing since I was a kid. Like with books, you just kind of fall in love with them, right? I probably look like somebody that's like really into sports, but don't let my shoulders fool you. Like I sit in Barnes & Noble cafes, drink coffee, and read books all day long. Like that's literally what I do. And I do have a little boy, so chances are he's going to be into like every sport there is, and I'm not going to know anything about it. But that's just kind of how life goes. But I decided to write this book. Like I said, I've written 7 books. I wrote my first book in 2015, and it's just like anything. When you start doing something, the first few suck. Like they're just not that good. You're learning your craft, you're figuring it out, you learn from your mistakes, but you only make those mistakes to learn from them if you're actually doing it. So I wrote those books, and when it came to this book, I knew I had kind of a crazy story because I didn't have a dad. So I was 34, my little boy, he's 3.5, his name's Kai, and he's my best friend. But right when I found out I was going to be a dad, I was out of my mind terrified. I mean, I was completely scared, just didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I didn't have a dad growing up. I didn't have a great childhood. One of my earliest memories was actually seeing my mom cut her wrist with a steak knife. It was, it wasn't a fun time growing up. And I met my dad when I was 22. He ended up being a really great guy, and I moved in with him. He made an offer for me to go back to school. He was going to pay for it. So I actually lived with him for 3 years. I was 22, and I went back to college. Before I went to college, I was singing in a heavy metal band. So I was chasing that rock star dream and, running around on stage screaming like a maniac. That's why I have tattoos everywhere. So, I was doing that, and then I met my dad, so I decided to give school a try, and I fell in love with it. After 3 years of living with my dad, we did a paternity test and failed it. It turned out he wasn't my real dad. So that was kind of shocking, and I told a family member about it, and she said, look up a guy who wrestled in the WWF in the 80s. It's WWE now, obviously. And, your mom was hanging out with him when she got pregnant with you. So I pull up a video from like 1980s WWF, and it was like looking into a mirror. I mean, it was crazy. Like this was 100% my dad. So once I found that out, along with that, my whole life I was told I was Italian, so I found out my real dad was actually black. So I was 25 at the time. So my entire identity and, my like ethnic background, everything just totally changed like overnight. Just woke up one day a black guy. So that's how it goes sometimes. So again, my dad's story was like, I didn't have a reference point for it at all. I didn't have a reference point for a healthy family or a good family. Aside from my extended family is incredible. Cousins and aunts and grandma, like they, thankfully they were there, but my immediate, just me and my mom, it was a nightmare. Like for 15 years living with her until she moved to California when I was 15, and I stayed with my aunt. And my aunt was just the best person I've ever known. She passed away when I was 18 from cancer. So life just kind of, kind of kept the punches coming for a long time. So I found out my real dad, wrestled in WWF in the 80s. Found out he was black, and we did an ancestry test, so it connected me to his family. So it was without a doubt, it wasn't just a YouTube video of a guy that kind of looks like me. It was 100% it connected me to his brother. So I met my uncle. I reached out and said, hey, I just want to find out, family history, stuff like that. I'm not looking for anything. And, he connected. We built a great relationship. But my dad, my biological dad, he didn't want anything to do with me. So he didn't want to meet me. We lived 4 miles away from each other. So the thing that was, it wasn't so much me being rejected, but it was the fact that he's missing out on Kai, on my little boy, on his grandson, and that sucks for him because that little dude is so full of light. He's so funny. He's so and the other thing that's crazy is he has this pro wrestling in him. So he'll climb a couch and super fly into me. He's a maniac. So we have it in our blood, and it sucks for him that he's missing that. So, I was married to Kai's mom. We since aren't married. We're separated, but when we were married, she was like, Mark, you have just the craziest story, your background, your life. I mean, it can impact a lot of people. And I'm like, well, yeah, but a lot of people have gone through stuff. What's, she's like, you need to write a book about your life, and especially, finding out your dad, all this stuff. And, I just didn't know what the message was. So I think that's an important thing too when you come to write a book and you want to, express yourself. Not necessarily that you have to have a message, but you have a story, and you think the story's worth sharing. So what I found out is all of our stories are worth sharing. All of our power is in our stories, and the power is in sharing our stories and our testimonies and what we've been through in life. So I knew I had a lot of random things going on, but I didn't know why, why I was going to write that book. So Kai, we'll fast forward a little bit. Kai's born, again, out of my mind terrified. I mean, I almost hate to share this. I don't like sharing this, but I was so scared before, when I found out I was going to be a dad, that I didn't want his mom to go through with it. It was a paralyzing fear, and I said that to her, and I said, if we don't go this option, then, maybe adoption. And honestly, saying that makes me want to throw up because he's such, I can't imagine my life before him. You know what I mean? So I can't believe I was ever in a place where I was so scared and letting fear drive me so much that I thought, I don't want this little magic human in my life. I couldn't see past the fear. So thankfully I sat through it long enough, and this is a message in the book too, and it's, for new and expectant dads. I think it's powerful for me to share that because I think the fatherlessness crisis that the world sees is because of fear, because it's unfortunately it's easier for a dad to run away. Mom, you have the baby, the baby's with you. Not to say that moms don't abandon their children either, but there's definitely a fatherlessness crisis that is happening. And I think, like I said, a lot of that is related to this crazy fear. And I think it's powerful to share where I was because I think a lot of people sit in that fear and they're like, no one's thinking the worst possible thought that I'm thinking right now about having a child, So I'm definitely not cut out for this. I'm definitely not gonna be able to go through with this. And I think to have somebody sit there and say nope, I was there. I was definitely thinking those horrible thoughts that turn my stomach now. But if you can sit through it long enough to come out on the other side, there's just this pure magic. So when Kai was born, he was in my arms. I mean, I get emotional thinking about it. It was just being hit with lightning. It was the most incredible love that I've ever experienced in my life. And the cool thing about it is it continues to grow every day. Like I said, he's 3.5 now, and it's I love him more every day. It's crazy how it happens. So, I was sitting there and thinking about, writing this next book. It was actually going to be called Chapter 7 because I had gone through Chapter 7 bankruptcy after my time in California. I'm all about chasing dreams. Like I said, I sang in a metal band. I always wanted to live in California, so in 2016, I quit my job, sold everything I owned, drove across the country, didn't have anything lined up, but have you guys ever read the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho? Ever heard of it? It's a great book. So that's my book recommendation for everybody. Read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Read mine second, but read that one first. And in the book it says, when you really want something, all the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. And I did. I stepped out in total faith when I moved to California. I didn't have anything lined up. And, just, it was crazy. When I hit submit to send the email to quit my job, a couple days later, my best friend's family called me and said, hey, we have a distant family member that just passed away. We need somebody to stay in their place to keep it lived in and kept up until it goes to market. And it was in Los Angeles, it was in California. So I went there, lived rent-free for like 3 months till I found a job at USC. When you follow your heart and you walk towards something, you walk by faith, doors open that you definitely didn't see and you didn't think would open. So, like I said, I'm all about following dreams. And again, I was sitting there thinking about this next book that I wanted to write, and I just didn't have the message. I was like, okay, I get it. I've, had a bad childhood. I have this wild dad story. I sang in a metal band and did some cool things. We played Warped Tour, signed autographs, did fun stuff. But what was the point? And I remember one day somebody posted something on Facebook, and I commented. It must have been a post about, I should have screenshotted it because now it's part of my story, but he wrote something, it must have been something about fathers being affectionate and loving toward their kids, and I just commented, dads kiss your sons. And I was like, oh, that's the message. That's what it is. That's why I went through all this stuff that I went through, because I needed to come out to become this dad that I am now. And I need to share that story with people, so Dads Kiss Your Sons became the title of the book. And, what I really wanted to do with it was share my story, but, all the pieces of my story that brought me here to being a dad. And I put a lot of science into it, because my background is my degree is in biology. I did a lot of research, at CMU and different places. So, science, heavy science, and I actually did a ton of research on what's going on when we are hugging and kissing and loving on our little ones, and what's going on. So, from 0 to 2, their brains develop 90%, or even 3 years old. So, if you're holding them, you're hugging them, you're kissing them and loving on them, what it's doing to their brains, it's creating these neural connections, and these neural networks are happening where security is developing, and safety is developing, and comfort is developing. So what's important with that is when you're a baby, you're growing really quick, and you have a lot of external and internal stimuli that cause a lot of stress. So if you have, that's just the natural part of growing at such a rapid pace when you're a baby. And if you have in your life somebody that's a primary caregiver or several primary caregivers that are continually loving on you and continually there, releasing this serotonin, these healthy neurotransmitters, these good neurotransmitters, it's letting their brain know, hey, it's okay, you're secure, you're safe. And that's likely why, Kai climbs on couches and flies through the air and attacks me now, because the kid just has zero fear, And I'm not joking, he'll climb on my shoulders and stand straight up. I need to get him in gymnastics and just jump off onto the couch. So just seeing those things, I'm I love this, because that's truly a result of the science that shows, these kids have less anxiety about trying new things, about stepping out, about just entering environments that could be frightening and scary. So, again, the title of the book was Dads Kiss Your Sons. It's kind of cool how I wrote it. So I take a story from, experience stories from my life, and it is the timeline, here's my horrible childhood, here's me singing in a metal band, all this stuff that's leading me into fatherhood, and then I add all of the science. So I have a separate section in the book, and it says the science, and it's heavy research, and I used, peer-reviewed articles and just the real deal research, and it was hard. It was challenging, to find these papers, and, if you've read some of these peer-reviewed articles, it's like reading an instruction manual for an instruction manual. They're just so convoluted and cryptic, and it took a lot of work just to find the point you're trying to make with the true science behind it. So I just put a ton of work into that, and I wrote the book. The cool thing, is anyone here thinking about writing a book, written a book, wants to write a book? Too embarrassed to admit that they want to write a book? Anyway, if you decide to write a book,
maybe a kid's
what's that?
Maybe a kid's book.
A kid's book, yeah, exactly. A kid's book, yeah, that counts too. The only thing I did with this book, and this is where, you know, I learned from my past books, the only thing I did for this book was I wrote it. Everything else I outsourced, and I created a GoFundMe, you know, and I had people supporting it, so I wrote the book, and, you know, there's a quote that's usually credited to Ernest Hemingway, but there's dispute from scholars whether he actually said it or not. But anyway, he said, to write, you just sit down at the typewriter and bleed. And I always loved that quote. I thought it was, even if he didn't say it, it just holds true. You know, you just write what's in your heart. Like I said, it's either your story, your message that you have, or a story that's just in your heart, you know, and you bleed all over the page. So, like I said, I wrote it and went back, read through it. To me, I was like, okay, it's done. And then like I said, I outsourced everything. So I sent it off for, you know, professional editing, people to professionally make it look and do the book formatting to make it look like a book and not just a Word document. Professional photography. I had a friend, you know, me and Kai went to Pitt's campus and just got a bunch of really great shots. He does professional photography. Came out with the picture that's on the cover. And what I love about that picture too is, like, you can't see his face, but you can see my face. And it's not because I'm some egotistical maniac. It's because the book is about dads finding this incredible joy and even healing in loving your children, not just your sons, but just your children. And my face, like in this picture, like you can see the joy of fatherhood in my face, you know, and that's kind of the point of the book. So that's how we landed on that picture. And, you know, so the book cover was done, everything. I even outsourced the blurb on the back of the book. So, and that stuff gets expensive. I mean, like, just to break it down, the one thing you don't want to skimp on when you write a book is the copy editing and, you know, the grammar, things like that. That was $1,000 to have somebody really rip through that thing and, you know, just take out all my horrible grammar mistakes and my comma splices, you know, and things like that. So that was an investment. You know, the book cover, I think, yeah, the person did the cover, and then she did the, like I said, the formatting for both ebook and print. And that altogether, I think, was like $1,300. So it's, I mean, it can be a serious investment. It doesn't have to be, you know what I mean? But anyway, I went crazy on this one. I really believed in this message. I really felt and feel strongly about it. So I wanted to put everything I could possibly do to make it as professional as I could. And I went the self-publishing route. So there's so many options to do self-publishing. And if anyone ever tries to charge you to self-publish your book, you're looking at the wrong place. So again, I did the self-publishing thing, and after that, like, writing the book is like kind of the easy part. Then you come into the business side of it. The business side of it is where it gets tricky, because like you're a creator, like you're an artist, like that's your craft, that's what you love to do. You don't necessarily love to learn about the marketing and advertising piece of it, but it was part of it. So I did press releases, different things like that. And when the book came out a year ago, March, I think 23rd, 2023 or 24th. It started getting a lot of media attention, and you know, we did book signings at Barnes & Noble. Me and Kai were both on CBS News Pittsburgh with her name just left, Heather Abraham. You know, it was kind of cool. Like, Kai was sitting there, he picked his nose on camera, and it was kind of funny. It was almost like he realized it, and then he put his hands in his face. He was 2, but it was hilarious. So, you know, we were on there, and then last Father's Day, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette did an article on the book and interviewed me. And I was expecting like this like little blurb, or something, and it was like a whole page. I mean, it blew me away. It was a picture of me and Makai, man, when he was like little, little baby, and the book, and it just blew me away by how much the book was, affecting people. And then podcasts, I've been on several like top podcasts, things like that, and the book did achieve #1 bestseller in several categories in Amazon, which was really cool. Yeah, thank you. I was excited too. And that's also another marketing technique. If anyone out there is thinking about writing a book, doing something, look into something called Publisher Rocket. It's a software that's going to give you all the categories that will assist your book in going #1, or at least becoming bestseller in the category strings that Amazon provides you. So there's some intricacies with it, and there's so much information out there, which you almost drown in the sea of information of self-publishing and how to do certain things. But if someone's coming at you asking you to charging you like some outrageous amount of money to make your book a bestseller, you can do it on your own. Trust me. So, but yeah, that's really the story of how I wrote Dads Kiss Your Sons and how I found the message, why I thought it was important, and this last year I kind of put the brakes on things a little bit when like I said, me and Kai's mom aren't together anymore, and that happened this last year. So this last year was really about sort of rebuilding our lives, things like that. So I did kind of step out of the spotlight. I stepped out of, doing marketing stuff. And this is actually one of my first events, even podcasts, things like that, coming back and, starting to promote the book again. So I really appreciate you guys having me and sitting here with me. So if you guys have any questions, that's kind of the story with my book and how I got here.
Do you find you and Kai's mother not being together where you are giving Kai even more love than you did before, or?
No, it's the same.
No?
It's the same insane amount of love. That's a great question, though. That's a really solid question because it made me analyze and think. But no, that little dude, he has been kissed relentlessly since he was born, and it just never stops. And that's from my family, his mom, Erin, too, so I think it certainly doesn't make you love him anymore, but I think it makes you a touch more aware of the time you're with him, because there are some days where we're not together, at that, it's not long, but I could never go a week without seeing him. I would really go crazy, Thankfully, her and I have a really great relationship now, and we're in a really good place, a really healthy place, especially for him. So, I see him a lot. We both are with him a ton, and he has not missed a beat in being loved unconditionally and just stupidly since he was born. So that's a cool question.
Are you going to have that conversation with him later on? Like, your mom and I are not together, and do you feel that that's going to be relatively easy waters to traverse, or do you find that to be might be some emotional baggage or trauma that might be there?
So what I'm thankful for is he was 2 when we separated.
Sure.
So he was young enough not to hopefully have experienced too much trauma in what we were going through.
Right.
And again, we did so well in compartmentalizing what we were going through away from him, that I think he's set up to make that conversation easier. We'll definitely have the conversation. It'll definitely be there. And I even wrote in the book, almost like foreshadowing without thinking about it. I wrote I think the chapter's Dads Kiss Your Baby Mamas or something like that. But it's just about being respectful and remembering who that person is, because that's not your ex. That's Kai's mom.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and I wrote that long before we were. The book came out in March. It's not that I finished writing it in March. I finished writing it like months before. So I had no idea that we weren't gonna work out, but I always knew that that principle and that lesson was there and it was important, you know. So I think the conversation will be easier if I remember that as the years go by. You know, if I, as long as I remember who she is, you know, to him, that's mom. You know, so you kind of have to, you really got to put yourself in those shoes. And again, it's not your ex, that's his mom. You know, so.
I think there's been a lot of disservice to guys in the modern day era because
100%.
People are emotional.
Yeah.
All emotions are legitimate.
Yeah.
But guys have always been sort of ingrained in them that emotions are bad.
Yep.
Sadness is bad.
Right.
And it sounds like you were doing an awesome job with Kai, allowing him to be safe
Thank you.
and allowing him to feel those neurotransmitters and the oxytocin flowing, because that's important. There was a Harvard study back a number of years ago where children who get enough appropriate touch, hugging and hanging out, and enough skin time where they were able to play independently and not freak out.
Yeah, and I see that with him now. I mean, he's good with groups. He has older siblings, but they're 15 and 12, you know. But he plays really well with people, but at home, he plays perfectly fine by himself. And in fact, he's like a three-nager. I mean, he'll grab his tablet and like just go in our room and like go in his tent or something and just be in a separate room. He'll close the doors. I'm like, all right, man, like there you go. And you said something else. Oh, letting him feel his emotions. You know, I wrote this book and it was basically like 0 to 2 was my experience, you know, with the book. And now, like, I'm in this, like I said, three-nager phase, and he's like a little dude. He's a little person now, and you know, we eat pizza together and watch movies, and like he's like my little friend. But of course, I'm dad too. So you know, when it's bedtime, you take away the tablet or you take away something, you turn off the movies, and he starts screaming. He's crying, and what I've learned is, you know, I kind of pick him up, and by no means I get frustrated. Like, I'm a human. It's, you know, it's not easy being a single parent. It's not easy being a parent, period, you know. So, you know, I lose my temper sometimes with him, and, you know, or yell, but typically, usually, like when he's crying like that, I pick him up and I'm like, hey, it's okay. It's okay to cry. I know why you're sad. Like, you want this thing, you still want to keep playing, but, you know, it's bedtime and it's all right, you know. And I let him cry, and I just hold him and like kind of comfort him in the fact that even though I'm the reason that he's crying because I took away the tablet or I turned off the movies or whatever, and it's bedtime, I'm still comforting him and letting him know, like, hey man, it's okay. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to cry, you know. So yeah, I love what you said. I mean, yes, men, and I think that's why the title's kind of poignant too. Like, dads kiss your sons. Like, of course you should kiss your daughters too, but just men expressing emotion. And I'm kind of thankful that it was given to me, like, you know, black dude with like a neck tattoo. It's kind of big. So, you know, like that message coming from me, I don't really look like the person to be like, oh, you should definitely hug and kiss your little boys, and, you know, raise them to be caring and sensitive and loving little dudes. So, that's important. I talk a lot about mental health in the book and the importance of it, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, how in the world can we expect to show up for anybody?
Yes.
You know, if I'm not full and whole and healthy, and, you know, I'm in therapy every week. I was in twice a week when I was really going through the separation, and it was, you know, it was a bad time a year ago. But I'm fully open with that stuff, you know. I mean, I believe in medicine, and I take medicine, you know, and I just, you know, I really am a proponent of mental health and taking care of our mental health. Because like I said, I can't be a good dad. I can't be good for Kai if I'm sitting here messed up and, you know, stuff like that. So
you believe in the power of therapy?
100%, yeah.
A lot of men don't.
No, yeah, I believe in therapy. No, and I'm a believer too. Like, I, you know, have Jesus tattooed on my arm. Like that, I think that's another conversation, you know, especially with like men and Christians. You know, people are like, oh, well, Jesus will heal me. I'm like, yes, 100%. But we also have medicine, you know, and how do you know he's not going to heal you through the medicine? You know, so, and then, yeah, for men, it's like, No, man, like we're all emotional. We're emotional beings. Period. We have emotion. We feel sadness. We feel depression. We feel anxiety. You know, and the thing with depression, like I know depression just so intimately. I'm thankful to say that with the medicine that I've been on for several years and the therapy and the things that I do, I don't really experience depression anymore. And I really do feel that I've been like freed from that, which is beautiful. Anxiety, different story. Anxiety's still hanging out with me.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is such an important thing to talk about, just to say like, yeah, I feel sad. And like I was saying, like I have just such an intimately long relationship with depression. Like the thing with depression is you kind of feel like you just feel terrible for no reason. Like that's kind of what sucks about depression is like, if you went through some stuff, you could be like, well, I'm depressed because see what I just walked through? You know, like that sucked. But like depression shows up where it's like, you feel like you were walking your puppy, and it got hit by a car. But there was never a puppy and there was never a car. But you have the feeling that situation would have brought you. Like that's depression. You know, it's just there. And essentially what really tends to happen with it, like scientifically and neurologically, is like, you have that's why the medicine is called an SSRI. So it's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So what happens is serotonin is released from the neuron, and it hangs out in the synapse long enough to give a message to the next neural cell to say, hey, we're good, we're feeling all right, we're feeling normal. And then it's recycled and it's taken back up. What happens a lot of times is it's released, but it's taken back up too quick. So the message doesn't get to the next neural cell to say, hey, we're okay, we're good, we're doing well. So now this serotonin's just not even really being used. So you're sitting there like, wow, I really am seriously depressed, you know, for no reason. But there is a reason. There's a chemical thing going on, you know. So yeah, I'm all about medicine and therapy and prayer, all of it. Yeah.
Looking back, did you use like reading and writing as a way to escape some of what was going on in life as you were growing up?
1,000,000%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started writing when I was. I mean, I picked up a guitar when I was 13, and I played. I mean, I played till my fingers bled because music was an escape, you know. And then I started writing like poetry. I started writing stories. I started doing, you know, all kinds of stuff, of things like that, and it really helped me, you know. Writing is extremely cathartic, you know. It's really therapeutic and helps incredibly. So, yeah, that's the cool thing with writing is like you're gonna. I think it's a Dave Matthews lyric. He says, "Someone's broken heart becomes your favorite song," and it's cool because it's true. You know, it's like the pain that we've gone through, the things we've experienced. If we can express it in a way that touches other people, you know, that's powerful. That's really cool. So yes, I definitely music and writing were definitely things I used to escape the not so awesome childhood that I was walking through. So, yeah.
Have you ever wanted to turn any one of your books or writings into like a movie or something like that?
I definitely see this book as a movie, 100%. You know, like it just feels, you know, and I've had people come up to me and like prophesy over me and say things over me like this is going to be a movie. This is a movie. So, yeah, I could definitely see Dads Kiss Your Sons being a movie, you know, with an important message. So, I don't know who would play me, but yeah, I could see it. I feel like we need to get Dwayne Johnson in there somehow.
Just call him up.
Yeah, like, hey, DJ, can you be in this? Yeah.
What part of the writing process do you find the most difficult?
It depends on what you're writing. So, I released a couple books before this one, like blog books. So I wrote a blog every day for over 100 days straight. I just wrote a blog every day, and I took them and put them, you know, took them from the virtual format, put them in an actual book. So I think the hardest part of that was writing every single day. You know what I mean? With this book, I would say the hardest part, sometimes it's hard reliving the stuff you walk through. If you're sharing things from a, you know, self-reflective place, sometimes it's hard to revisit those memories, to go through that stuff. You live it again. You know, you feel that pain all over again. So that can be challenging, but it also helps. It's also kind of healthy for you. But I think the hardest part for this book was the science. You know, definitely like I said, skimming through and, you know, reviewing all these really heavy research articles, finding things that made sense, ensuring that, you know, you didn't just find one that made your point, but it was contrary to 5 others, you know, so like really being mindful of, you know, what you're presenting and going through that stuff and trying to take something that's written so archaically, or not even archaic, but just written so esoteric, I would say, you know, just so convoluted and crazy, and making it and explaining it in a way that it's accessible to anybody. Like, you don't need a biology degree to understand, you know, the neural connections that are happening in your little one when you're hugging and kissing them. So, yeah.
At some point, do you see yourself writing another book about the next phase of your guys' relationship?
Yeah. The next book's actually called Just Us. It's about single parenting. So, what's that?
Just took the question.
That's a good question. Yeah. So, you know, what was a really cool thing that happened, right when, you know, we kind of separated. It was a night, and it was the first night me and Kai were by ourselves. Now I give bath. You know, I gave bath time every night. That was me. Like, you know, midnight feedings, 2 a.m. feedings. Like, you know, me and Aaron, we both did everything. You know, so it wasn't like I never gave him a bath, or I did all the bedtime things. But I remember the first night it was just me and him. I was, you know, I was scared. You know, I was like, can I do this? Can I, like, now it's just me, I'm alone. Like, at least before, it's like I give him a bath and, you know, mom's gonna give him his bottle and he's gonna go to sleep, or vice versa, you know, however we split it up. But I was really scared, and, you know, I gave him his bath and we're in bed, and I had, you know, a movie on, and it's hard to explain this without being emotional. This is the first time I talked about it in public, but he grabbed my head, like, he put his hands on my head. He never did this before, and he kissed me on the forehead, and then he did it again, almost to say, and he was only 2, and Kai's, he's not stringing sentences together, so he's not like literally saying that it's going to be okay, but that little kiss and how he grabbed he never did that before, and he's never done it since. He grabbed my head, just kissed my forehead twice, and it just felt like, Dad, it's okay. You're going to do it. You've been doing it. We're fine. And then he did it the next morning, and I was like, okay. And he hasn't done it since. You know, so, and I have done it, and we are in a really healthy and happy place right now, even with having gone through something pretty not fun. I'm never afraid to talk about my man Jesus. I talk about him in the book. I also drop some F-bombs in the book. I'm human. But I keep it real, you know. But there's a scripture where three young boys are thrown into a furnace because they're not going to worship the idol that the king wants them to worship. What are their names? It's on the tip.
Bendigo, right?
Meshach, Abednego.
Yeah.
Shadrach?
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Yeah. I listen to a lot of Joel Osteen, so the rhythm of how he says things goes in my head. But they, you know, they wouldn't bow down to the idol, and they were thrown into the furnace, and the king turned it up 7 times hotter than it usually is. And the king looks in the furnace after a while, and he says, "Didn't we throw 3 men bound in there? I see 4 men unbound, and one looks like the Son of God." And, you know, they came out of the fire without the things holding them, you know, sort of together, like in bondage, and they came out without the smell of smoke. And I love that, because, you know, when you walk through fire, God walks through it with you. He's not always going to keep you out of the fire, but he's going to be the 4th man in the fire with you. And that 100% was my reality a year ago. I was in the fire, but I was not alone because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys if I was. Go ahead.
That's high.
And she had. She was first. She beat you to it. Go ahead.
You describe the pain of like everything that you went through and how hard it is to relive everything with bringing it up again with your writing. And you talked about like how you go to therapy.
Yep.
Would you say that that's how you were able to relive the pain repeated? Like, because I know that sometimes like relieving pain can help in ways to like sort of numb something because you become desensitized after like you're exposed to it so much.
Sure.
But also I feel like there are certain things where pain it's pain regardless. Like how have you managed that in a productive manner to be able to relive it with with your story?
So I faced it, I felt it, and I feel it. You know, there's things, you know, that I can, you know, I think that's what's really cool about forgiveness. So I can talk about a pretty gnarly, terrible childhood in reference to my mom without feeling anger, without feeling how dare she do these things. I would never do this stuff to my little boy, you know, or how, you know, talking about my dad, like, how dare he not want to, like, how could you not want to be with me? How could you not want to, like, you're, like, I go, like, when I go to work, I'm like, oh, what am I missing with him? You know, I just want to be with him so bad. So I can't imagine. So, you know, when I think about that stuff, I think as you face it and you feel the pain, I think it's easier to forgive because you're used to being with it. You know what I mean? Like you've experienced it, and you can look at it. I don't know. Pain, you know, it's a good deep question because pain's a really weird thing. You can talk about painful things and not feel the pain, and then some days you talk about it and you do feel it. You know, so I don't think you're ever fully free, potentially, from feeling certain things. You know, I think when you are, you're not on this planet anymore. But I think I was able to go back into that stuff, and I'm able to talk about that stuff for a couple reasons. Yeah, I mean, therapy helps. You know, I definitely talk, you know, with my therapist through a lot of the things that I've gone through. I've been talking about this stuff for over, you know, for probably almost 20 years, you know, that I've gone through. And I know that, again, it's your testimony too, you know, so I know that it's impacting people, and I know that what I walk through is going to help other people, you know. So, you know, there's a mission behind it, there's a purpose behind it, and sometimes that takes over the pain, but no, sometimes it doesn't. You know, I think you just gotta let yourself feel it, you know? Like, you can't beat yourself up, like, oh, why am I sad? This thing happened when I was 5. I should be past this. I should be over it. It's like, you're human, you're emotional, you know? It's gonna come back up. It's all right.
With all that pain, like, what do you think brought you to be able to forgive? And like,
Say that again?
With all that pain and anger that you may have felt at one point, like, what brought you to a point of forgiveness? I mean, I don't think that it was just like one thing, but can you think of anything that helped facilitate that for you?
I think forgiveness is a really tricky thing, you know, because I don't think you do it once and it's done. You know, I don't think you just say like, oh, I forgive you, and it's over. I think you have to kind of make a choice when you're faced with that thought again and again and again. And like I said, I think when I think you've found yourself in an unhealthy place of unforgiveness when you think about a specific person or a specific situation and you're enraged and you're embittered and all for good reason because of what they did. You didn't do anything. Like, it's their fault, 100%. You know, like, there is no one in the world that would look at what happened and say, oh, you're a little at fault. No, it's 100% their fault. But I think you're gonna walk down an unpleasant path, and you're gonna carry around some stuff you don't need to carry around when, again, every time you kind of think about that or it's brought up or you remember it, you're embittered and you're enraged and you feel all these things. If you can get to a place where you look at that stuff and you acknowledge how bad it was and what they did, but you don't allow hate to fill you up, and even if you can somehow like find love for that person, you know, and even understanding of like, yeah, they were wrong, they know they were wrong, but where were they at in their lives when they were doing that wrong thing to you? You know, I think it's difficult though. It's not, that's a really deep thing, and it's something that I pray about too, you know. I'm like, God, did I even forgive this person? Because there's days where I just want to be like, you did some real a-hole things to me, you know, and it sucked, you know. And I think that's being honest too, you know, when you're like, man, that sucked. And it's like, yeah, it did suck, you know, but then you kind of, it's that emotion again, you know, so it kind of washes over you, and now you kind of, okay, well, I felt that. Do I really hate you? Like, do I really want to carry around this negativity? Do I really want to carry this burden of, okay, every time I think of you, I'm going to hate you. Even though we had some good times, and even though we had these beautiful moments, I'm only going to think of that negative one because that's the heaviest, and that's what really hurt.
Do you ever find yourself like, because it's like, it's so it's not that it's easy, but it's like, whenever you're able to get to a point of like, okay, this is doing me more harm than good by carrying all this negativity, do you ever find yourself in like just random spurts of like yeah, you've acknowledged that, but like all of a sudden one day like all of that anger is there and pain, and it makes you not necessarily, like let's say we're people that maybe you still had to interact with or be around, like how do you handle those emotions? Once in your mind you've already come to terms with it, but you haven't really if it's repeatedly.
I think you have, you know, but it's again, it's emotion. You know, you just can't regulate it all the time. You know, you're going to have a day where you can just take a lot more than you can in another day. You know, there's some days where like Kai could be screaming his head off for absolutely no reason for hours and it doesn't faze me. You know, there could be a day where he's doing it for 5 minutes. I'm like, Kai, stop. You need to chill, dude. Calm down. And it's just grinding on, because you're in a day, you know, maybe you didn't get enough sleep. You didn't, you know, you've been working hard. Life is not easy. Like, life is hard, you know? So you got to give yourself grace in those moments. You got to give yourself grace to say, like, yep, I'm pissed at that person. It's related to the stuff they did. I know I need to let it go. Hopefully I'll do better a little later tonight, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe next week, or maybe next month. I just got to give myself some grace. But I know I want to forgive them. And I know I don't want to carry this hate around. And I know I don't want to feel this negative. I don't want to feel this when I'm seeing you. So hopefully I won't. Yeah.
2 questions. Like, have you found like one specific strategy to help like those really hard days, like get through them? Like, even because like sometimes like when you feel that way, like you just don't want to do anything, like you just kind of like feel down on yourself those days.
Yeah, and you know, and sometimes nothing works. You know, like nothing works. Like you can go for a walk or a hike, or you can go to the gym and beat yourself up in the gym and exhaust yourself and eat healthy all day and feel good about the fruit that you ate and the, you know, the stuff you made. You can meditate, you can pray, you can write, you can do the things that you know make you feel good, and at the end of that day you still feel like garbage. It's all right. You know what I mean? And it's all right if you didn't do all those things.
And then I'm guessing Kai's too young to understand now, but do you see yourself sharing your story with him when he gets older?
Yeah, and that's, you know, I wrote in the book sort of to him like a bit of an apology, or I can't remember. I got to look at it again, but like I said, I shared that fear and what I was feeling for a bigger reason. You know, I felt like that there's a bigger calling on sharing that part of my experience coming into fatherhood, where it was, this is what I wrote. It had nothing to do with Kai, because I didn't know Kai at the time. I just knew, oh, I'm going to have a baby. I'm not ready for a baby. I'm scared to have a baby. I didn't have a dad. I can't be a dad, you know. And I can't be a dad to a boy. What if it's a boy? I don't know anything about sports. I look like I do, but I don't. You know, like, so yeah, you know, and I'm really praying that he can understand and give me the grace that I'm asking him to give me at that moment, you know, where it's like, it wasn't Kai. I wasn't saying, I don't want to have Kai. I had no idea, you know, I just didn't think I could be a dad. So, and once, and that only lasted about 2 weeks, you know, and I remember telling my cousin Vicky, who's more like a mom to me, she's my older cousin, and I was like, yeah, we're going to have a baby. And she started crying, and she was like excited, and I was like, wait, is this a good thing? Because for some reason in my mind, instead of being like an adult with like an advanced degree and a career and a like healthy relationship, I like somehow reverted to like, I'm 14 and got my girlfriend pregnant. Like that was like somehow like that was what I was like thinking and fearful of, and that wasn't the reality of it, you know. So once I saw her happy, I was like, oh wait, this can be a good thing, and then my paradigm shifted, and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. So now what? What happens next? You know, and then it kind of became fun planning, but I'll tell you, you know, the mom gets a head start on connecting because he's growing in you, you know. So the mom gets a head start in that. You feel him kick, and you know, I put headphones on her belly and play classical music, sometimes little metal. He does love metal now. It's kind of funny. He's musically attuned very well. So genetics are crazy. I mean, like I said, the wrestling thing and the jumping and the music, I'm like, man. But it wasn't until you heard this cry, and then you go over and I cut the umbilical cord. Like I did all the things, you know, cut the umbilical cord, and I see this little screaming human, you know, and they give him to me, and you hold him, and it was just, I mean, it was the most magnificent feeling you can ever feel. So it's like the mom has like all these months of like connecting and feeling this growth and this love, and it's almost like you get all that in an instant. It's like you got all of what she had. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe she still feels more connected than you do, but to me, it felt like I didn't miss anything. Like this love is like completely taking me over. So, yeah.
So there's such a thing as spiritual direction, which combines therapy and faith and spirituality.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate, as a believer in Jesus, somebody who believes in, you know,
yeah,
something that will accompany us in our journey? Have you already incorporated like faith in Jesus into your conversations with Kai, and how do you plan on continuing that
with him? Yeah. So again, at the moment he's, like I said, he's not quite stringing sentences together. He's in speech therapy, stuff like that. But we pray every night.
VeggieTales?
We haven't gotten into VeggieTales. I should get into some VeggieTales.
Yeah, VeggieTales are great, and it helps to. It's very fun, and they're personified vegetables. It can't be anything but fun.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, he's like into like I mean, he's taken after me a little too much because like he's like into horror movies and stuff, and like, you know. But we pray every single night, and I actually say affirmations. I'll just say it right now. I say it over him every single night. I've been saying it since he was almost 1, and they've evolved. But I've landed on this, and I say this after bath time. I say this to him every night. I say, you're strong, you're safe, you're secure, you're brave, you're blessed, and highly favored. You're covered in the blood of Jesus. You're healthy, you're kind, and you're so loved. You were born into abundance. You were born into blessing. You are abundant, and you are a blessing. And mommy and daddy love you so much. I love you. I love you. I love you. I say that every single night. You know, so I do say Jesus to him every night. He hears the name all the time.
So for your next book, do you find yourself wanting to follow the same format you did with this book, like having like the science aspects, and then are you planning to do the same thing you did with the last one, outsourcing all of it?
I'll definitely outsource everything else. Yeah, I mean I didn't outsource any of the science or any. You know, like I said, the content, all the content is me. There's no ghostwriting. I didn't hire ghostwriters or anything, so the content is me. But, you know, if it's like, oh, he didn't comma splice, like that wasn't me. You know, everything else is other people lending their beautiful gifts to it. For the next one, honestly, I haven't gotten that far into thinking about it yet, but I almost see it more case study, so more psychology based than bio. Like this book was, there's a lot of developmental psychology in it, but it's more biology, I would say, neurophysiology and stuff. So the new one, the next one would probably be more case study and potentially even reaching out and connecting with people that are single parents, you know, and hearing maybe their stories a little bit, sharing what their experience has been and some of what they've taken away and the strengths and the good things, the bad things, you know. So I'm not quite there yet. I just got the title. Yeah.
With being a single parent.
Sorry. What?
I said with being a single parent and having temper, which is normal.
Sure. Yeah.
What have you found best works for grounding yourself whenever it's not like you can just give the kid to someone else
Yeah.
or, you know?
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think I've definitely never been the parent, and I don't think either of us are, where it's like if he's being bad, it's like, all right, you take him, I'm done. So I think for me, it's like just breathing. You know, like if I really am in a moment where like it was a long day, you know, I know myself, and at 9 o'clock, like I'm done, like I'm checked out. You know, I usually get up really early, and I like my mornings and stuff, but by like 9 p.m., I'm like, all right, I'm ready for bed. I'm ready to wind down. But if it's like, you know, let's say it's after 9, it was a long day, I'm tired. Kai is like losing all of his mind for no reason. Nothing's working. He doesn't want oatmeal. He doesn't want cereal. He doesn't want the tablet. He doesn't want the phone. You know, like, and he's just screaming for no reason. I mean, usually he's tired when he goes to sleep anyway. But, you know, maybe he needs a bath still or something. Really, it's just taking some deep breaths. I mean, that grounds me. You know, if I just like, just do that for me. And then get through what we got to get through, do it, you know. But, yeah, it's natural. I mean, it's natural to just have a long day and, you know, get a little irritable.
What do you do to ground your anxiety?
To ground the anxiety.
I mean, I'm not asking for solutions. Like,
No,
it's just
still
like
working on it. I mean, I work out a lot, and I try to walk a lot. I try to like have an active lifestyle, you know, and that really helps me with anxiety. You know, going to the gym, lifting weights, I go on the Stairmaster for like 40 to 60 minutes. Just to me, that helps me burn out that anxiety in my chest. Because that's usually where it sits. It sits like an elephant, like right here on me, and that usually helps me. So doing that, and you know, and reading, like I said, like that. I mean, that's what's important about being a parent, or just being human. You know, like I said, you can't be good for people around you if you're not being good to yourself. You know, it's really hard to show up to somebody. It's hard to pour into somebody if you're empty. If you don't have anything in you, you can't pour into anyone else. No matter how much you want to, how much you love them. Like if I'm not incorporating exercise, working out, you know, doing that stuff that I know is important for me, and reading that I love to do, then I'm just not going to show up as good for Kai as I can. And I always want to show up as full as possible for him. And that's a big message in my book too, for sure. Yes.
Even on the days you feel empty, do you feel Kai pours into you? It makes you feel better?
Yeah.
Because like he's a 3-year-old, so he probably doesn't like fully comprehend.
Wait, say it one more time. I think I heard you.
Like on the days you feel empty, do you feel Kai pours into you and makes you feel better?
Yeah, and there's a lesson in that. As a parent, don't expect that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times parents will look to their children to do that, to fill them up, you know, to make them feel good. And sometimes he's just being a little butthead, no matter what. And I'm like, bro, you're cute as anything, but I kind of can't stand you in this moment, you know. But no, like for sure, like he absolutely fills me up. He's absolutely my anchor. Glance at a picture. I mean, I'm just so in love with that little boy. So yeah, even in those moments where you're like so frustrated, I'm like, you're still so stinking cute crying. like, you know, like, you know, there's little teeth, your little cheeks, his little dimples are going, like, yeah, I mean, he fills me up just by being who he is. Not because, he doesn't fill me up because he was good today. He doesn't fill me up because he didn't cry today or he didn't lose his mind. You know what I mean? Like, he just fills me up because of who he is. Just being Kai fills me up.
I think it's important to be very much aware of who you are.
Yeah.
So, like, what type of person do you feel that you are? Outwardly focused, inwardly focused? Because a lot of times, if you are an inwardly focused person, at the beginning of the day, you have 100% of your cup.
Yeah.
Each moment that you have to be forcing yourself out of your comfort zone, a spoonful is taken out, and a spoonful is taken out, and it keeps pouring out, and then you're empty, and you really can't do anything for anybody else because you're not filled up. That's where sort of Kai comes in, that's where the gym comes in, this is where steady breathing comes in, this is where watching a movie comes in, this is where you go
Pizza,
to your little
also.
happy place. Pizza, of course. So like, or do you balance the two, inwardly focused, outwardly focused? Because a lot of times people
What do you mean by outwardly focused? You mean the things you just mentioned? As far as
like
outwardly
you're
focused?
going out and you're like, I'm selling my book, and you're just like, oh, this is really uncomfortable for me because I'm not necessarily a type of person that does this all the time.
Yeah.
So like,
I'm definitely more inward focused. You know, I think I'm that extroverted introvert person.
the ambivert.
Yeah, 100%. Because doing this stuff, I love it. Like I love it. I love meeting people and connecting with people. I love talking about my book. You know, I'm talking about my favorite subject, which is Kai. You know, so you know, and I love it. And again, you have that message, and I pray before I talk. I'm like, God, give me some words that are potentially going to help people if they need it, and get them where they, you know, where you're calling them to be. So I love it. But at the same time, I love just sitting in a cafe reading a book. You know what I mean? Like I definitely, if I was 7 nights a week doing speaking engagements to crowds of 3,000 people, I don't think I would like that very much.
Like, how are you doing right now? Are you pretty? It's a smaller group, so it's not like this big speaking engagement.
You mean like how do I feel right now?
Yeah,
Like
how do
the
you feel
second?
right now?
I feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good. Like, you guys are really engaging. You guys are awesome, you know? How did I feel before I got here? Anxious, nervous.
So
you know?
does a smaller group like this fill you up more than it empties you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would, yeah, I'm going to walk, yes, to answer your question, I'm going to walk away from this feeling great. You know, like I'm going to be driving home, I'm going to text Sam, say thank you so much for allowing me to do this, because I'm reminded of, you know, of my passion. I'm reminded of the mission that I'm given. You know, I'm reminded of the calling that's on me to connect with people, to talk about important things like this. You know, it's so important. Like, oh man, I know a lot of younger people are going to hear this, and it's like, no matter what your background is, when you come into becoming a parent, no matter when it happens, you're never going to be fully prepared for it, ever. No matter how much money you have saved. I thought I had to be like Bruce Wayne status before I was going to have a kid. You know? I was like, wait, I don't have 7 figures in the bank. I'm going to have to show up at a thrift store all the time now. Like, these were the thoughts, like, happening. But, you know, you're never prepared for the next thing that you're not prepared for, but you're going to somehow go into it, find yourself prepared, and I think that's God. Yeah.
I know you said you wrote a message to Kai in your book. So how would you feel about Kai reading your book when he gets older?
Yeah, I imagine he's definitely going to. You know, I wrote it with that thought, you know, in mind, and I do talks and podcasts with that thought in mind. No matter, you know, what me and his mom might have gone through, like, that's, like I said, we're in a healthy and a good place now. I keep all that stuff in mind, you know, because he'll see it all, potentially. And yeah, you know, I think he'll read the book, and like I said, I think when that moment comes that he reads about my fear of becoming a dad, not a dad to Kai, but just having a baby, I really pray that he has enough wisdom and has the ability to give me the grace that I'm praying that he's able to give me when he does read that. Because I could get rid of it. You know, I could try to hide that, but I just think it gives a voice. Maybe it's because I'm looking at that word right there, voice. I think it gives a voice to men, to expectant dads, to new dads, or even dads that just haven't been a new dad in a long time. I think it gives them a voice of, wow, I was that scared too. Because what's the worst, you know, if you're a dad, like what's the worst possible thought you can have, you know, if you're finding out that your partner or your wife or your girlfriend is pregnant? And this isn't a political thing, you know, but like, you know, the good thought is like, I'm going to become a great dad. Like to you, as the individual, the bad thought is like, I want her to have an abortion, or I want to give the baby up for adoption because I'm too scared to do this. You know what I mean? And like, and I think men, you know, men can associate that with it being a bad thought, where it's like it's not. It's just you're scared. It's a fearful thought, and like that's okay. Like it's okay to be scared. It's natural. It's gonna happen. You're gonna be scared. You're gonna think like that. You know, and you can't beat yourself up for it. But what do you want? Like, do you really want that, or do you have an idea of like, what does it look like if you are a dad? Like, have you given that any thought, or are you only giving thought to fear? You know, because like I said, if you can sit through that fear long enough and come out on the other side, there's this like crazy magic love that's waiting for you with this little baby that's gonna like overtake you in ways. I mean, I could write 1,000 books. I'm never gonna cover even close to what I feel toward that little boy, you know? So I pray he finds it in him to understand that. Did I explain that in a terrible way, or did it make sense?
Kind of piggybacking off of her question, is it something that you would want him to read, like when he feels he is ready, or like when, you know, the time would come where he would be a first-time dad?
Yeah, maybe that would be a better time for him to read it, you know? Yeah, that would be awesome for him to, because that's who it's for.
Or like to reread it.
Yeah.
He takes on himself to read
Like,
it.
hey man, how you feeling? Are you like terrified? Because I was. But he may not. You know, he and I'm so thankful for this. Kai's not going to have the same experience I did. You know, Kai knows what it's like to have a good mom who doesn't do some of the things that my mom did. You know, Kai knows what it's like to have a good dad. Kai knows what it's like to just have a dad, let alone a great dad. And I don't care if I sound egotistical in saying that. Like, I'm a great dad because that's the only thing that really is important to me. You know what I mean? So when that's the compliment I look for. I don't look for, you're right. I mean, sure, it's great, but like, oh, your writing's great. Your book was so good, and it's the bestseller, and it did, you know, and like, I love that stuff too. I'm human. Like, that's cool. But like, when someone's like, you are such a good dad, man, like that's what I'm going for. That's what I'm going for. Not because I wrote a book, because I love him and kiss him and hug him, and we're at Barnes & Noble together. He drinks his little hot chocolate and his, you know, version of coffee. Sometimes he tries to steal my coffee, but I won't admit that on camera. Go ahead.
Like, I know he's only 3, but like, has Kai started to take on a love for reading? Like, does he like it when you guys read books to him? Like,
He
does
does.
He try to read books on his own?
Yeah, he's getting more into it, and I try to like really get him into it. Like he was like obsessed for a while. He was loving it. Like, we would read like these 3 books like back to back. Of course, they were like Halloween books. There's obviously a trend with me with Halloween, but yeah, he does like it, and he kind of like got away from it. But that's like what toddlers do. It's like they're into something, and then they don't care about, just like food. Like, he loved pizza for a long time, then he wouldn't have anything to do with it. Now he likes hamburgers. Never ate a hamburger in his life. Now he loves them. You know, so but I think it's important. What happens is, you know, I think things are caught far more than they're taught, you know. So him seeing me always surrounded by books, always reading, always taking him to Barnes & Noble, like, he's gonna catch that vibe, you know, I think more than me pushing it in his face. I'll push it in his face a little bit, but yeah, I think him just seeing like, why is Dad always got a book in his hands? Like, what's going on there?
question about reading and things like that. Do you have a favorite book that you guys like to read, or a book series? Because they say that if you start a child with a book series early in life, like I grew up on Goosebumps.
Yeah, me too.
So like, then you'll be a reader for life.
Yeah. We haven't started any series, but I have been thinking about that. I'm just trying to figure out kind of how to do it with him, because he's so little boy in that he's just climbs and jumps and runs, and I mean he opened his eyes this morning, and like the first thing he did was like tumbled into me. You know what I mean? Like he just like opens his eyes and he's like, all right, let's go. You know, there's like no buffer time. There's no like, okay, wipe the sleep out of your eyes. It's like, oh, we're up. Let's jump off this. You know. So yeah, I definitely want to do that. I'm gonna try to incorporate that. Now, I mean, it's a lot of like children's books.
Of
you
course,
know, like we read like The Halloween Tree, which is a really great book. You
Like
should read it.
Clifford.
Love it.
One
Yeah,
great
It's
suggestion.
definitely bad.
If you've never seen it, Harold and the Purple Crayon.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's, yes.
Is that a-
that was a great one.
He has a purple crayon and
Yes.
he draws himself into scenes and
Yes.
Love it.
adventure and everything.
Harold and the Purple Crayon. I remember that.
So I do have a question, since we're on the topic of books and everything like that. How did you find the publishing process whenever you're going to publish your book? Did you find it easy? Did you find it difficult?
So it depends on which route you want to go. If you go self-publishing, so I've only self-published all my books. I was intending on having this one picked up by a traditional publisher. If you go that route, now I got so far as I created a book proposal to send to agents and things, because that's typically how it works. So you write a book proposal, which to me felt like the heaviest grad project ever. Like that's what it felt like. It felt like a grad assignment. Like it was, who's your readership? What are the stats? What's the, you know what I mean? It was kind of cool to like dig into that to really try to find a readership. But I've really found that my book, it's not a how-to dad, it affects everybody. And to be honest, most of my readers are female, and that's who I've gotten most responses from. Because it's a story, it's more of a story, you know? Like I said, it's not like how to dad, like it's just the message. It's almost like when you name a song something, you know, people feel it in different ways. But if you go the traditional publishing route, that's typically what you gotta do. You gotta write the book proposal, have a product as professional as you can, and then shop your proposal around to agents that are open to taking it. And then what they do is they start shopping your book around to potential publishing houses if they want to take it. I mean, it's a lot of like finger crossing and like, I don't know, like you shot in the dark. It felt like, you know, like you just didn't really feel like you don't have a lot of control over it. And then if you do get picked up and you don't have a name yet, and you don't have a very big platform, like you're at their mercy, you know. So they're like, we're gonna just take all of your royalties, and you're not gonna make anything, and you can't make decisions on sales. Like if you want to put your book on, like do an offer for 99 cents for your ebook, or sell your hardcover for $5 for an event or a Father's Day because it's Dads Kiss Your Sons. Like you don't have that control, you know what I mean? So I was like, forget it. I'm gonna go self-publishing route again. You know, I'm going to do it better this time. I'm going to, like I said, I outsourced everything as far as making the book look as professional as I could. And I used a different printer. So I used Amazon just for the ebook distribution. And then it's called Ingram Spark. I used them for the hardcover and paperback, which they channel to Amazon as well. So if people go to Amazon and buy whichever one, they'll still get it. But when you do that, you just have more control over it. You know, you have more, your obvious, like royalties are more yours, but then there's another part to it when you do direct selling. So I created a Shopify site, and now it's all direct selling with my book, and it's not even through Amazon. Amazon's cool, and you can still get it there, and you want to have your book available to readers wherever they really want to go, but you know, for the business side of it, like if you need to make money, which you should make money, you know, you're investing a lot into this. And especially if it's something that you love to do, you know, I'm on the side now, and I'm actually kind of new on this side of, I created the Shopify, and I'll be drop shipping the book. So like when people buy, they're now buying directly from me, not Amazon. I'm collecting all the customer information, their emails, so I'm able to, and these are people that are interested now. So it's like you got a captured audience, and you're like, hey, I'm putting out this new book, or hey, I got these shirts now, or hey, I got these hats or hoodies, like, this is cool, right? And then you just, you kind of start building a business in that way. Sorry, I went from publishing to business, but it's all kind of connected.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I guess a follow-up question. I had a follow-up question for that. So, like, if you're a first-time author, would you recommend going the self-publishing route, or would you recommend, like, because I'm thinking about publishing a book, so I'm like not sure, like, entirely the logistics with it. So, would you recommend going down the path like you took, or would you?
I think it depends on your goals. You know what I mean? I think it depends on your goals. I can't speak too much from the traditional publishing side because I haven't been traditionally published, so I can't say too much on that. It works great for a lot of people, and maybe my next books will, I might go traditional publishing potentially, but I think it depends on your goal. If your goal is, I really just want my book out. I really want it to be available for people to get on Amazon and stuff like that. And like you can still do that and get picked up by a traditional publisher. So it's like, it's not necessarily like you put a stake in your heart if you just did, or if you did self-publishing. Sorry, that was a Dracula reference. I don't know why I said that. So, it won't hurt you, but like self-publishing, you could definitely get it done out a lot quicker, So it just kind of depends on your goals. Does that kind of make sense? And it is fairly easy, So if you do go that route, like look at Ingram Spark because it's free to upload your stuff. Their stuff is beautiful. Like the books are beautiful when you get them. It'll distribute through Amazon and all the channels. If you want to do the best, make the book a bestseller on Amazon, there's a couple techniques to do that. It's essentially just picking a category string and, checking it when your book releases. Because the algorithm with Amazon is updated hourly. So when people start buying in a certain niche or a certain category, because not everyone's releasing a book. Everyone's releasing a book in self-help today. There's probably 8,000 books coming out today in self-help. There's not 8,000 books coming out in developmental psychology, So that's how you kind of climb that list easily. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you said with like self-publishing, you have a lot more control. So with going with an actual publisher, they may have said like, oh no, you can't use this image for your.
Oh yeah,
they
yeah.
May have had their own.
100, absolutely, yeah. You. I don't think you're allowed. I mean, you can maybe have a. Like I said, I don't know. I haven't worked with a traditional publisher, and they're not all the same. Also. But yeah, I mean, if you get picked up by like Penguin, or you get picked up by like HarperCollins, or any of the big, New York houses, yeah, you don't own that. I mean, it's a cool thing, and it can, it can do some. You can really blow up with it, but I don't remember the author, but there was like some. There's an author that like the publishing company made like $141 million off his 11 books, or off of maybe not 11 books. He only made 11 million, which isn't anything to put your nose up to, but in comparison to 141 million, and you made 11 million because they got all the royalties on movie rights and all that stuff, like, but would he have had the platform to do it on his own? Did they give him the platform to do, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things, it just depends on your goals, So I'm not really the person to talk to about traditional publishing because I only got so far as to creating the book. I mean, I'll tell you what you got to do to potentially get there. I made the book proposal, and then you shop it around to agents, but I just decided I wanted to do it on myself.
I think that like having to shop around to agents and everything can maybe take away from your end goal of actually wanting to get your book and your story out there.
Yeah.
Where you're having to spend all this time with those agents, where you could be spending.
And it can be pretty deflating too. And it's it sucks up all your energy because like you just wrote this, and this is the greatest thing you've ever read. Like, how does no one love this? Like, how do people not think this is gonna sell? This is gonna sell. This has to sell. You know what I mean? But you just get like, they get a million things a day, and it's, so I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that to discourage it, but it's just not something I thought was going to be right for me. I would rather build a base and build a platform myself, and then potentially have them come to me. Not to sound egotistical, but there was an author, I saw him speak, J.D. Barker, and he writes like horror books and stuff. He was talking about that too, and he was self-published at first, but then he got like the goose egg deal. He got like the 7-figure deal with a big publishing house, but he had sold over 10,000 books of his own book, like being self-published. So like they're looking for numbers, so if you can show that it's already selling, then they're gonna give you a better offer. They're okay, this person knows what they're doing, they're marketing it right, they're successful. Because that's the thing too, is like they're gonna sign you and they're gonna expect you to do all the work that you would be doing anyway as a self-published author. But they're gonna take all the all the royalties and all the rights. So
How Billy, how did you go about, what strategies did you find worked best for you to market yourself and your book, especially like not just generally, but to the audience that you wanted to reach as a part of your mission?
So that's an ongoing process. Like that's, my background isn't in marketing and PR and stuff. So I did a lot of reading, YouTube videos, just watching things, learning as much as I could. And one of the best things, and it will always be probably the best thing, is relationship building, and reaching out to people. For me, I found a lot of podcasts that were like parent related, dad related, that were doing really, they were really doing big things. And I just messaged them. I was like, hey, like, I love your your mission and like the work you're doing. Like, here's the book I wrote, it's a bestseller. Can I be on the show? So like literally just like reaching out to people that you think would benefit from, your content and the book that you wrote and the message that you have. So just individually reaching out, but then like right now I'm in the process of doing and hiring somebody again. So like I said, I outsource a lot of stuff, but having somebody run Facebook ad campaigns, to target more people that way and kind of see how that goes next. So Facebook's like a really strong place to sell books.
Have you thought about other social media groups?
I have, but right now I'm just trying to focus on just you know what I mean? Like as far as like ads go, like just that. But as far as content and building a brand, I'm probably going to begin focusing more on Instagram for that. So, and TikTok, but it might be banned in 12 months. So, I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. So, the president just signed that, so not sure if we'll have TikTok anymore. You guys asked some great questions. This was a really fun conversation.
Thank you.
So yeah, get my book, Dads Kiss Your Sons.
If you want any last-minute apples, we are selling a couple. Money if you want any, but